Today, I'm going to show you all the things you need to know in order to record a full song within Universal Audio's Luna. And we're actually going to be recording a song as we go through this video. So by the end, you're going to know how to set up a new project, work with audio tracks, virtual instruments, work with MIDI, edit your tracks, fix your timing, add plugins for mixing your song, and even export your song out so you can share it with your friends or Spotify or wherever you like to release your music. All right, so when we open up Luna, this is the start page that we are presented with at the very beginning. And this is where we are going to create new projects. We're going to open existing projects, all those kinds of things. But before I get started, I actually like to come over here to the settings tab and check to make sure that the audio interface or the audio device I'm using is selected. So right now I'm using the Universal Audio Volt 2 for my audio interface, and that is selected. All right, let's go back to our create now that we know that we are all set up and ready to go. And let's create our new session right here. So we got to give it a name. So we're gonna go with Super Awesome Rock Song. And if you have a recording or a mix template you like to use, you can use that here, open that here. I don't have any created yet. That will be a future video, so make sure you hit subscribe. I'll show you how to create templates in here. AAF, don't worry about that at all. That has nothing to do with what we're doing today. And tempo. I already know the tempo of my song, but if you don't, you can actually kind of tap right here and kind of get ballpark if you want to. But I know that we are at 108. And for time signature, this is a 4/4 song, but if you're doing 6/8, 3/4, 5/12, whatever, you can change it right there. Location, this is the default location on a Mac. I'm not sure what it is on a PC, but you can also open this up and you can change it to something else if you like to use external hard drives or something like that. I'm just doing this on my local hard drive for now. So let's hit create and see what we got. Okay, so when we open up our Luna session, by default, this is what we see. And there's kind of a lot going on here. We're going to talk about a lot of these things, but also I'm on a MacBook Pro 16-inch screen, and for me, it gets a little bit crowded while I'm working, so I like to clean up my screen and give myself enough real estate to work with. But while we're cleaning up this screen, I'm going to talk about what each of these sections are and what they do, so we get a good layout of how this all works. First of all, right here, we are in our timeline view. This is where channels are going to show up right here for guitars and bass and all that kind of stuff right there. And then our audio waveforms will show up over here, our MIDI tracks, all that kind of stuff, right? If we come up here to this little view section right here, we click on this second one, and that takes us to our mixer display. And right here, again, it'll add all your channels. This is where our faders are going to be, our pan knobs, and all those kinds of things. Usually, you're going to do a lot of your mixing and stuff in this view. But we're going to be recording right now, so we're going to spend most of our time here in the timeline view. One thing that we're going to use a lot is this right here, and this is the browser. You can see we have tracks, we have plugins, we have presets, all kinds of useful things going on here, even groups down here, which we're not really going to get into in this video. You can use this button right here to hide that and give yourself some more room, and you can click it again to show it. One thing I want to point out also, again, in this view section, this third button, if we open this, you'll see browser right here, and that'll also open and close that browser. So let's go ahead and close that for now because we don't need it right now, and give ourselves a little bit more room. Also right here, this is the focus panel. And as we add our guitar tracks and bass tracks, when we click on each one of those, this will change to represent that channel. So whatever plugins or pan settings or fader settings you have will be represented right here. That way you don't have to keep going back to the mix window to change something and then come back. It's all right here. So it's pretty handy and useful, although I don't like having it up all the time, just when I need it. So we can come right here and we can close that focus right there. Of course, we can open it back up again. So there we go. Info panel is this stuff down here. I never use this once my project is set up. This is so we could switch between Volt and Apollo. Again, I'm only using my Volt 2. Right here, we can change our sample rate if we want to. I always record at 48K, so I don't need to change that at all. Now, one thing to note is that Luna always records at 24-bit. There's not another option. That's just the default recording bit rate. So just something to know there. Buffer size right here, 64 still. Again, as our project grows, we can change this if we need to, but 64 is always my starting point. And then we have these little meters down here showing our computer resources as we add plugins and start building out our project. I never need to see this really, so I hide that, and if I need to, I can always just pop it back open, but I don't really need to. The next one I'm going to take a look at is this mon, which stands for monitor, and that's this section right here, which shows us our output levels and all that kind of stuff. I like to leave this one up most of the time. That way, while I'm tracking and recording and building out my projects, I can see that things aren't getting too out of hand. But of course, we can hide it if we want to, or we could leave it back open, which I'm going to leave it back open for now. All right, so one more little cleanup thing I like to do is right here, we have all these different lanes going on up here. And I don't need to see all those. So if we click these little 3 buttons right here, 3 little dots, you'll see we have all these options to turn things off and on. Time signature, this is a 4/4 song and it's not going to change. I don't need to see that. Same with tempo, we're not changing tempo, so I don't need to see that. Minutes and seconds, I usually don't care about minutes and seconds. I might check it once just to see kind of how long the song is. Outside of that, I don't need that, so I generally hide that and I'll just pop it open if I need to. We'll leave markers open. Also, we can hide some things on our clips over here, which I almost never do. The only one I kind of do is pitch control, because I've accidentally changed the pitch of like a bass part and all of a sudden it's way out and I'm like, what is going on? So if you hide that, you can't do that on accident. And grid lines you can hide for some reason if you ever wanted to, but I always leave that on. So let's close that up, and there we go. So this is how I like to start my projects. Again, I need to build a template for this, and we'll do that in a future video, but this is a great starting point and a great way to learn kind of what's going on the screen. All right, so now it's time to start adding some tracks and building out our super cool rock song, or super awesome rock song. That's what we called it, right? The first thing we're going to start with is drums, and we're actually going to use a virtual instrument for our drums, and we're going to work with a little bit of MIDI here. So what we need to do is open up our browser right here, and we click on this plus sign, and we can add an audio track, an instrument track, bus, those kinds of things. So you can also do it from right here. You see this little plus sign show up, but I like to do it here. This just works better for my brain, makes more sense to me. Right here, we're going to use instrument, and if you click on the wrong one, not a big deal, you can switch it right there. But we're using instrument, we just need one of them. We want to keep it stereo. For the name of our instrument, we're going to call it drums, because that's what we're doing. We're going to use shape, which is, so you click all this, you could choose any of these that you have, but you should have shape, because shape is a free sound library that comes with Luna, even the free version of Luna. Also, it gives us an opportunity to kind of manually work with some MIDI stuff. Normally, I would use Easy Drummer 3 for my drums. It's got an awesome MIDI editor in it, but that's all within Easy Drummer 3. And we're talking about Luna. So we're going to use this. Tape, we're going to use Oxide to add a little tape saturation later on. That will be in our channel strip. When you download Luna, you will get a free 30-day trial of other stuff that will probably show up there. But Oxide is one that comes with the free Luna, so you'll have that as well. And also, this stuff comes with a 30-day free trial or with a Pro Luna. I don't have either one of those anymore. My demo trials periods have expired, so we're not going to use any of that. So we're going to click OK, and that creates our track right here. And also you can see now we have shape showing up here, and you should have the presets right here. And if not, you can click on this to make them show right there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on drums, but you can see all these other cool sounds we have here. Definitely check those out. There's some good ones in there. But we're going to come down to drum. We're going to do OWT Kit Live 2. I believe OWD is for Ocean Way Drums. You can see it populates these sounds, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do here within Shape, but we're not going to touch any of that today. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward. And there we go. So now we have our drums added as far as the sounds. We're going to close our browser right here. One thing I like to do when I'm working with a track like this is hover right here and you drag down and expand this out and make that track nice and tall and make things easy to work with. You can also click right here and this will open up this panel, and you can change all of your tracks to teeny tiny if you want. You can go crazy big if you want, or bring them all back to kind of the default size. But for right now, we're just going to drag this one out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag and drop a MIDI file. And you may not be able to see this file on my desktop, but here it is. I just dragged it in, and I'm going to drop it right there. And we're going to choose Keep Current Tempo Map. That's going to use the tempo from the song. And there we go. And what this is this is just an 8 count of hi-hats. So I like to start all of my songs with 2 bars of hi-hat counting in. Just gives me time to hit record, get set for playing guitar or singing or whatever. So we're going to drag this all the way over to the beginning by clicking that header of our region. We can drag it around, and for some reason when I drag this in, it added some extra space here. We do not need that, so we can click down here at the bottom, see that little bracket, click on that and drag this all the way over, and now we have 2 bars. We can zoom in using my trackpad on my laptop right here, or we can zoom in and out using these plus and minus buttons down here, and there we go. Now if we hit play right now, you're going to notice we don't hear anything. And that's because the MIDI note for hi-hat and the software I use to create this apparently is different than the MIDI note for hi-hat within Shape. But that's not a big deal, and actually gives us an opportunity to see how we can move our MIDI notes up and down. So if you had a piano part or a little lead line you're playing and you needed to adjust some notes, this is how you would do it. We're going to move all of these, so we're going to highlight all of them right here. And you can use the up arrow on your keyboard to go up 1 note, or down 1 note. You can use shift up to go up an octave, and of course shift down to go down an octave. I do know that the hi-hat is up here, so we're just going to hit up until we find that hi-hat. There we go. There's our hi-hat. If we go back to the beginning and we hit play or hit spacebar, we have a hi-hat. So there we go. Now I'm going to drag and drop another file. And this is my standard 4/4 drum beat. I like to use this for situations like this. It's just an easy beat that already sounds fairly natural. We're going to keep current tempo map, but I can add any kind of drum fills, tweak the beat very easily, all those kinds of things. I will actually leave a link in the description down below if you want to grab these MIDI files. I also have 6/8 ones in there as well, and you'll have these where you can drag these and play around with these as well. Again, we'll have the same hi-hat issue right here. The kick and snare are actually good. Like if we hit play, those are the same, but we just need to move our hi-hat up. So shift up, and then down a few. There we go. All right, I start hearing Michael Jackson bass line start coming in right about there. Anyways, but this is only 4 bars, so we don't want a 4-bar song. We're going to go crazy, and we're going to go for an 8-bar song. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we click on this header right here, and I can hit Command D to duplicate this MIDI region. You can see it just duplicated it again. I'm going to zoom out so you can see that better. I can also hit Command Z to undo that, and I can make sure this header is clicked again, and I can hit Command C for copy, and if I wanted to stick it over here for some reason, I could do that, hit Command V, and now it's copied and pasted over here. Again, I can click on the header here and drag this all the way back, and because I have it on snap, it's going to snap very nice and cleanly right here to the end of this other region. If I want to turn snap off, that is right here, so I just click that, now it's turned off, but we're going to leave it turned on. So there we go. Now we have our drum beat. We have our full 8-measure song going, but I want to have a nice clean ending. I want a little kick and crash at the end. So we're going to zoom in right here. And I know this is my kick right here just by the notes. I can visually see that. And I'm going to double click right here, and that's going to create a MIDI note right there for me. Crash is up higher. I just know that. So we're going to click on the hi-hat right there, and we're just going to move this up till we hear the crash. And there it is. As you get used to this, you may know more, where these things are. There are some other options. We're not going to dive into a lot of this, but if you need to shift your MIDI sections up like this around the piano roll, you can do that. Luna tends to kind of keep everything within context for the most part, so it kind of goes with a smaller piano roll view right here. You can also drag this out, these little squares at the very end, to really extend that piano roll if you want to. You can double click right here and get it back like that. And there are definitely some other options you can do as well. Fold right here just shows only the notes you're using and gets rid of all the in-between notes. We're going to turn that off though. So just some cool options for viewing your MIDI right there. Now I do know that this kick right here is quieter than I want. The velocity is low. It's not hitting as hard as these are. So I want to turn on my velocity lane. So you can do that here with this little 3 dots and 3 lines icon. Click that, and there we go. And if I move my cursor off there, you can see these are both way down here. I want to bring them up. So if I click on one of them, that looks like that grabbed the crash. I'm going to bring that up a little bit. And then the kick right here, I'm going to bring that up almost all the way. And then I want to do one more thing. I want to add a snare hit right here. So I have a nice little 16th snare fill right here. So what we want to do right there is we want to come over here to our grid, because right now we're just showing quarter notes. We want to see 16th notes on our grid. There we go. Now we have it right there. And I can double click right there and add a snare. And then you'll notice on these, I like to keep these nice and big if possible for drums, because it doesn't really matter how long they are. It's just going to hit, and then that's it. And it makes it easier to click on these. But if you want to, you can always get to the right side of that MIDI note, click on that and drag it and make it smaller. Now it looks more similar to these right here. I want to highlight all of those, and then I can come down here and I can bring the velocity up like so. And there we go. So if we go here to this last measure and hit play. There we go. So there's our super fancy drums. We're going to zoom out so we can kind of see everything. So we have our 2 bars of click right here coming in. We have our 8 measures of drums, and we have our super fancy ending. Now we're going to hide this velocity lane because we don't need that anymore. And then we're going to hit this and do medium size for all of our tracks and just kind of bring everything back to the same size. Now, time for some audio tracks. Okay, so now it's time to start adding some guitar tracks for our song now that we have our super awesome drums down. And to do that, we're going to open our browser back up. And we're going to click this plus icon again, and this time we're going to choose audio. This time we're going to add 3. You can click the up arrow here to get to 3, or you can just type it in there. Format, we're keeping it mono. Track, we're going to go with guitar and space. This will do guitar space 1, guitar space 2, guitar space 3, right? For tape, I don't want any tape on this one at this time. We can always add it later if we change our mind. And for console, again, we're going to leave that as none. And we're going to choose OK. So now you can see it's created 3 guitar tracks here for us. And what I'm going to do is actually on this number 3 right here, I'm going to rename this. Just double clicked on the name, and it's going to be called bass now. Whoops. Or G bass. Let's go with bass. I like to have my bass up here between my drums and my guitar, so I can click on the header here and drag it up to organize that. Or I can come over here to the tracks and click on this and drag it up here. And now it's up there. This is great right here if you're going like longer distances. It makes it nice and easy there. Another thing I like to do is I like to color code my sessions, and so we're going to go with the guitars. I like my guitars, including my bass, to be green. So I highlight those. We can click on this little blue square here, or we can click on these color rectangles there, but I like these. These are easier. And we're going to change that to green, and now my guitars are green. For drums, I like my drums to be orange because orange starts with O, which is round, and drums are round. That's my logic. For main, we're just going to turn that to gray because I don't really need a color on that one. We're going to click done, and now we have this nice and clean. All right, so for guitar 1, that's what we're going to start with. We're going to add an amp sim plugin to this channel. So let's go back up here to this 3rd icon, and let's open up that focus panel that we saw earlier. We haven't seen that in a while, but notice how as I click on these, they change, right, for that particular channel. And that's going to be really helpful for us. We're going to click on plugins in our browser because we're going to add an amp sim plugin. I'm going to use the Dream 65 right here from Universal Audio. We're going to add that right there, and you can see it automatically puts it in the correct place. Let's close our browser. Let's bring our amp sim plugin over here so we see it better. I know just from experience, I'm probably going to want this eviction. I'm going to turn that off. Turn that off. I'm going to drag this down to somewhere around 7.5. This is going to be somewhere around 7, somewhere around 6.5, something like that. And turn the bright switch off. And that's going to be our sound. We may tweak it a little bit, but we'll start with that. Close our amp sim panel right now so we have some plenty of room here. And it's time for me to tune up, and we're going to get to recording here. Okay, so I'm mostly tuned up. This room is really cold, so I'm fighting tuning issues a little bit, but that's all right. This is rock and roll, right? So what we want to do is on our channel right here, Guitar 1, we want to click this I button. And that right there allows us to hear what I'm playing through the amp sim. So that's called input monitoring. And then the other button we want to click is this one right here. And this is record enable. And you can do both of those down here on the channel if you want, if you prefer to do it down there. But this will allow us to actually record when we hit the record button. Now, before we actually record, a couple of quick little notes here about our click. If you hit play, you hear the click. We don't really need the click because we have this hi-hat counting in. That's part of the reason why I do that. But also we have these drums that we're playing to, so the click isn't really needed. One thing also to note is that if you have this highlighted right here, this little 1, when I hit record, it'll give me a 1-bar click count in before it starts playing. Like that, right? Again, I don't need that. That's why I have this 2-bar count right here. If you want to change that, you click up here, this click header, and you can change it to 2 bars, 4 bars, whatever you want to change it to there. We're going to turn it off because I don't need that. All right, so let's go back to the beginning of our song, make sure at the very start, and I'm going to hit record. All right, so there we go. Not too bad for the take, right? But not perfect. We can clean that up a little bit. But we'll go ahead and turn these off right here. And now we are done with Guitar 1. So now it's time to take a look at Guitar 2. Hey there, editor Greg here, and just wanted to jump in real quick and say if you're finding this helpful so far, you're going to want to drop down to the description box down below and grab my free guide, 7 home studio recording secrets to pro sounding songs. These are 7 tips and tricks that pro audio engineers use day in and day out to get that pro sound for their songs. And you don't have to buy any outboard gear or microphone or major money investments, right? These are things you can start implementing today to really level up the recordings for your songs. So if you're not happy with how your songs are sounding currently, go grab that and give those things a try. And while you're down there, make sure you give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and leave me a comment and let me know what you'd like me to show you how to do next in Luna. All right, back to it. Okay, so time to add Guitar 2, and we're going to do basically the same thing, but we're going to do it slightly different just to show you there's another way, different option of doing some things. So last time with the Guitar 1, we stayed here in the timeline view, and we used this focus panel right here. This time, we're actually going to switch over to our mix view here, and we're going to do a couple things. One, I want to draw your attention to these 2 buttons right here. Open will open all of these things going on right here, and close will close them all up. I really like the close button. It makes things nice and consolidated and all those things. One thing we want to do is click up here, and we want to check our inputs. And I forgot to mention that on Guitar 1, but we're going to go ahead and make sure we do that here on Guitar 2. Guitar 1, it wasn't a big deal because I was already plugged into channel 1 and this is already set to input 1. But if you need to change your inputs, click right here. It'll open up your browser here and you can just select which input and you can see it update right there just fine. We're going to leave it at input 1 because I'm still plugged into input 1, but thought I should mention that. So let's close that one up. We're going to open up our inserts because that's where we're putting our plugins. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this, but we're going to open up our browser and we're in the plugins view right now. And we're going to type in the name of our plugin, which we're going to use the Lion 68 from Universal Audio. And we can actually just kind of click and drag that on to the one that we want to add it to. There we go. And there is our plugin. I know I'm going to just crank this down right here. I don't want much room reverb on there and everything else will be fine. We'll close that for now. So now we have 2 guitar parts. These are going to be similar parts and we're going to double track them. So we're going to use our pan knobs here in the mix view and we're going to pan the Dream 65 left and we're going to pan the Lion right. And then we're going to click this I for input monitoring. We're going to click this one here for record enable. And now we should be pretty much good to go. I want to go back over here to the timeline view because I just like recording over here. We're going to close our browser. But if I click on guitar 1, you can see our pan has been brought over here. And click on 2, you can see our Lion plugin is there, and our pan and our input monitoring and record enable are also represented in this channel strip. So that focus mode is super handy and super quick when you're over here and you like to hang out in timeline mode, but you can always kick over to the mix mode to do some work there as well. Okay, so let's track guitar 2. All right, so we're gonna make sure we're back at the beginning of our track, and we're gonna hit record, and here we go. All right, so close enough, not perfect, but there we go. Again, we're going to want to turn off our input monitoring and our record enable, so those are nice and quiet. We don't need those anymore. Okay, so now that guitar 2 is done, it is time for bass. And it's going to be a lot of the same here at first, but we're going to take this opportunity to look at some options for how to punch in and fix recording mistakes. We're going to do a little bit of editing, even show how to fix some timing mistakes and stuff like that. So we're going to click on our bass channel right here. We're going to click on inserts right up here. I'm going to type, let's see, Ampeg right here. And we're going to use the Ampeg SVT VR Classic from Plugin Alliance. And I know I'm going to want to crank the volume a bit. We're going to want a little bit of treble. We're going to add that right there. And we're going to close that up. That should be good enough for now. And again, we're going to turn on our input monitoring and our record enable. Input 1, we're good to go. And make sure we have some sound. There we go. I'm going to tune up and we're going to lay down a bass part real quick. Here we go. Okay, not so bad for a first take right there. I do know that I had a couple little flubs that I would like to try to fix, and we're going to take a look at those. So zoomed in a little bit here. When I came to this part right here, this little doo-doo-doo thing, I know I kind of messed it up right here. If we take a listen to that in solo, it's a little bit weak. I feel like I did it better over here. Take a listen. Yeah, definitely did it better right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part, copy and paste it over there. So put my cursor right here. I like to do it on even measures, and then we can adjust it. Just makes it easier to see what's going on. Do Command E right there, and then click right here, and Command E right there, and that splits that. Click on this region right here, the header, hit Command C for copy, and then we come over here, and we're just going to drop it right here. Command V for that. And let's see what that sounds. Let's go a little bit back here before it. Not too bad. There's a little bit of a click right here where we have this transition. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can get a little bit closer look at that right here. And so what we might try to do, we could do something like just try to move this around a little bit and find a good spot that works. Maybe just move it right here, kind of where we have a little break right there in between. Not too bad. What we can also do is we can put a little bit of a crossfade. So if we click right here in the middle and drag this out, that'll put a little crossfade. I heard a little pop over here too. We'll add a little crossfade right there too. I have snap turned off, by the way, so I can make these smaller crossfades. Just makes things a little easier. And let's take a listen. There we go. That sounds nice and clean. So let's zoom back out and we'll see right here. Now we have a region there, a region there, a region there, and a region there, and a region there, right? So our bass line's kind of all chopped up, which is not really a problem. But if we want to, we can consolidate all these. We can shift click like this, right click here in the middle of one of the audio regions, and then we can use consolidate right here, and boom. Now we're back to just one nice clean looking audio take. And I usually like to do that once my edits are finished. So that's one great way of doing that. All right, so let's undo our fix. And now we're back to kind of our take where I messed up right here. Not the greatest, right? So if we don't have a spot where we can copy and paste from, what we could do is just punch in. Or a lot of times, usually I just like to punch anyways. I'm not a big fan of copy and paste. So we can just punch in this one little part right here to fix this without having to record the whole entire track again. So an easy way to do this is I like to go a little bit beforehand. Let's turn snap back on, make sure we're right on the grid. And we want to use what we call pre-roll. So in order to get pre-roll to go, we come over here to this workflow section. This first one right here is called record workflow, if I could talk. And this is where we can set up our pre and our post roll. There's also a MIDI workflow, there's an editing workflow, and there's a mixing workflow. But for now, we're just going to focus on the record workflow. And so we can turn our pre-roll on right here, click on this first number right here, and choose like 2. And that'll give us a 2-bar pre-roll right here. When we hit record, what happens is it'll play from here to here. Once we get here, then it'll start recording. And so that gives us plenty of time to listen to our audio, get a feel for where we are, play along, and get a nice clean punch in right there. So let's give that a shot. Turn this off of solo, record, enable this stuff. Let me zoom out just a bit so we can see our stuff better. All right, so I feel like that was a much better take there. And so we can zoom back in here. We can listen to what we just played. So let's turn that off, hit solo. I'm gonna turn pre-roll off so we can kind of just start from right here. All right. So now we just need to do a little bit of cleanup because this is recording after I had stopped. So I'm going to just drag this on back like this into that empty space. Might add just a little crossfade just for, turn snap off, just to make that nice and clean right there. And then for right here, I think I'm going to drag this one over here in between these two. So we have a nice clean separation right there as well. And I'll probably just add a little crossfade there. Just there we go. Let's take a listen. That one's really loud. I don't like that one, to be honest. So let's see if we can drag this over and find a happy medium right here. There we go. I like that take right there. So now I've punched in this new take right here, and yeah, sounding good. And then we can consolidate all of these audio files just like we did before. So we're gonna go click, shift click right there. That gets all of them, right click and consolidate. And now we have one solid bass take. Okay, so one thing I like to do is I like to fix little timing problems if they are a problem. Specifically, I really like to fix at the very beginning of the song and even at the end of the song, any kind of big hits we have going on. So we can see right here at the very beginning of the song, this guitar comes in a little bit earlier than the rest of them, and I definitely want to fix that. So I want to nudge this attack over just a little bit. So what I'm going to do that is we're going to click on this audio region. On our channel right here, we need to change our view from clips to warps right here. And then let's close our browser back. And now we're going to make this bigger so we can see it better. There we go. And let's zoom in once right here. There we go. So now we can really kind of see that. And you see, we have these different markers. These are where Luna is seeing the different transients within our session, within our track right here. So the quick, easy way to do this is just to come right here, and you see these little lines and dots right here. We can click on that, and I can just drag this on over Now I don't have snap turned on right now, so let's do that. Let's turn snap back on and do the same thing, and boom, there you go. You can see it just goes right there. And I can actually do the same thing for these other ones real quick if I just really want to make sure everything is super tight and ready to go. Although they really aren't that bad. I may not even fix those in real life. There we go. And we can come here to the end where I was holding this note out and I didn't have a click, so everybody kind of just hit whenever. So I want them to all be on 14. Let's go to the downbeat of 14 right here. So click on this one, and you'll notice when I do this, it highlights those other lines. That's just giving boundary markers. So when I shift this, it's not shifting stuff to the right of this one or the left of the other boundary marker. It's just only shifting within here. So let's see, with this one right here, I don't know. I probably just need to go like that, maybe like that, and bring that one over. That's a little hard to tell. This one right here, we can definitely tell. Bring that one over like that. There we go. So that'll probably sound a lot cleaner right here if we hit play. Yep, pretty clean right there. Go back and listen to the front of our song and listen here. There you go, nice and tight. So now we'll want to click on our channels again. Now, if we're done with those, and we are going to get rid of warps and change it back to clips. That way we're not adjusting anything without wanting to. And I'm not clicking very carefully right there. And then we could do the same thing with bass, but also I want to do one more thing with bass. Let's go ahead and close this out. I'm actually going to hide our focus, and you can see we still have our warps here. And what I want to show you, even though it looks like my timing was actually pretty good on this, surprisingly enough, but let's see if we can find something that's a little bit out. Not too bad, but we can actually quantize this. A lot of times I like to quantize my bass parts just to lock them in with the drums. And this is a simple way. Since our drums are on the grid, we'll just quantize to the grid for now. I can hit this Q button right here, and that's going to open up the quantize panel. And you're going to see, if I zoom out a little bit here, we can choose different quantize grid options right here. There you go. I think 8th is going to work best for this, and I want my grid to be 8th as well. And so we can really kind of see that. You can see as I click this, it's updating automatically like this. So if I turn it off, it's original. If I go to 8th right here, it updates, change the quarter, 16th. You can see things moving around a little bit. We're going to leave it on 8th. If you don't want it to move automatically, turn off this auto apply, and then you can change this, but then you have to actually hit quantize for it to update. I like to just leave this on because it's just really helpful. Also on quantize, you can choose your strength. So if you don't want it to quantize quite to the grid, you can pull it back just a little bit and it'll leave it off a little bit. It kind of split the difference, which you can't really see too much right here. Yeah, and you can also use range to adjust the number of markers and stuff like that. But that looks good to me. We're going to just go ahead and crank that up to 100 because, and we'll close this out. And now this bass part is quantized. Now, normally I would listen back to this and make sure I don't need to make any adjustments because it's not always perfect, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So we're going to get rid of our warps and go back to clips right there. So now our bass should be all quantized and locked in with the drums really tightly. And we've cleaned up the beginning and the end of our hits right here. One other little cleanup thing I like to do is I like to clean up my heads and my tails. So let's go ahead and just clean up the heads real quick. And all we're doing is we're getting rid of this noise that we're hearing. Let's mute our drums and listen to just the guitars. There's all that hiss and finger noise, and we can get rid of that real easily. We can just drag our audio region like this, and then we could do a fade like that. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, like on the bass, we can click right here. Again, Command E to separate this. Click on this, hit delete, and then we could add a fade just like this. What I usually like to do is I like to split that and get rid of that, but go ahead and turn snap off, and that way I can bring this up real close just like this, and just add a very small fade. If you don't add that small fade, sometimes you will get a little bit of a pop. So bring it up close and just a little bit of a small fade. We're going to get rid of that fade, and we're just going to bring it up nice and close right there. Add a little fade. But now if you listen to this from the very beginning, it's nice and clean, it's silent, and everybody comes in together. So there we go. So now if we come over here to clean up our tails, we just have a little hit right here. I'm going to turn snap back on, and what I really want is everybody to fade out and end at the same time. So we're going to go something like, I don't know, right there looks good. I'm just going to visual right now. Do that. Bring this one right here, and then we'll just add the same fade to each one of these, like so. There we go, and let's listen to see what that sounds like. There we go. We could tighten that up a little bit if we wanted to, but that's good enough for now. All right, so I think that sounded pretty good for a little quick song like this. All right, so now that we have our tracks all recorded, it is time to start mixing. And one thing I definitely like to do before I start mixing, and I actually really usually do this near the beginning of recording when I get done with my scratch tracks, is add some markers, but definitely want this for mixing. So what we want to do is open up this marker section right here, and you can click right here. The easiest thing to do is just double click right here. I like to make sure snap is turned on, that way it's exactly on the downbeat. And we'll just call this one verse 1 like that. We'll leave the color purple for now, and we'll hit apply. And there you go. Now we have that one right there. All right, so the next one, let's say right here, is our chorus. So we're going to click there and just do C1 for chorus. And let's say we want our chorus to be blue. Make that blue. Come over here, and same thing. We can just do end right here. And let's make that red. There we go. And let's do one at the very beginning right here for our intro on the very first downbeat. And let's call this one intro, just like this. And what you can do is you can leave yourself comments here too. So let's do, 2 bars of hi-hat, whatever, something like that. Hit apply. If we close that out, now when we hover over this one, you can see it says 2 bars of hi-hat, right? And then if, say, you get to the chorus and you need to leave yourself a note to fix something, you could do that right there. So you could just double click on that C1 for chorus 1, and you can, fix bad guitar solo, right? We have a bad guitar solo. We need to go back and retrack. So we apply that, close that, and now we can leave ourselves a reminder, fix bad solo. So super handy. Also for navigating around, the shortcut is Command Option L to go back, and then Command Option single quote to go forward. Not my favorite shortcuts for this, but right now in Luna you can't do custom shortcuts, which is one drawback. So I've had to learn some new shortcuts for sure on this. But there we go. That allows us to jump around from markers. It makes it easier to manage our session and to bounce around to different sections and find our place, especially when our song is longer. It's kind of simple right here. But once we have bridges and multiple choruses and pre-choruses and intros and guitar solos and all that kind of stuff, this comes really in handy. All right, so we're going to throw some plugins on this and we're going to do some mixing. This is not going to be a full-on mix tutorial. This is just going to show you how to get around. So switch over here to our mix view right here. And we're just going to close everything up like we've done before. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this console section. We're not going to use that at all. The other stuff we'll mostly use. So real quick, simple things. Let's talk about adding some plugins. So on our bass, we already have our amp sim. We've already been adding some plugins in this way. So we're going to just do a little bit more of this. Again, not a full-on tutorial of mixing. So we're going to add, not that one. By the way, if you want to remove it, right click, click remove. Let's try that one right there is the one I wanted. And we can click on default here and we get all of our presets. We can choose bass presets, just nice bass, whatever. And let's get some compression going on here. All right, so there we go. I have that. What I usually like to do next is that compressor is kind of leveling out my bass volume. I like to do a bass rider from Waves on here, and that's going to level it out even more without adding all the compression stuff. That'll work right there for right now. And then next I want to add R bass. This is kind of just my standard go-to workflow for bass. I change it up, but there we go. Good enough. Our bass is just going to help our bass sound stand out on small speakers. Just add some harmonic content for that. So that's all we're going to do with our bass right now. Again, not a mixing course by any means. Let's say, though, we have our drums here. Let's open up our instrument and look at our shape right here. And I don't like this room sound right here that we have going on, so we're going to turn that off. And now our drums are fairly dry. And I want to add a room sound that I like better. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our send to send this to an effects bus. So what we're going to do is open our browser right here, come to tracks. We're going to choose bus right here, and we're going to leave it in stereo, and we're going to call this drum room. Okay. And I usually like to make my buses all caps like that, summing none. We're not going to do any tape on this one. We're going to hit OK. We're going to change this to a nice blue for bus. We're going to leave that down here. On, we're going to close up our inputs, and we're going to open up our inserts. And on here, we're going to use Sound City Studios. And this has a really nice drum reverb room kind of thing on it. So we're going to use the reverb version here, and let's open up this. And I actually want to mute those. We're going to use this middle here, which is these over here. Those microphones, I'm going to get rid of that low end because I know it builds up pretty quick in this. And there we go. So now what I want to do is open up the sends for my drums because I want to send some drums over here to this reverb. Okay. And so to do that, we click this. I choose drum room right there. I want to crank this up pretty good. And we're going to hit P for pre-fader right there. And now if I click on this, I soloed up the room and I solo up our drums. I'm going to make sure real quick. Yes, our mix is all the way 100% wet, which is what we want for this. Okay, so now let's take a listen with. And without. So there we go. Nice big studio room sound going on with our drums now. So I like that better. And if you remember up here, we have tape on our drums. And we can add just a little bit to give it a little bit of saturation and crunch on there as well. So that's all we're going to do for our drums right now. So for our guitars, let's make a guitar bus for these right now. And so let's go right here. And this is going to allow us to mix our guitars with just one set of plugins instead of individually. So let's do guitars like that. None, none, none like that. Boom. And now we have guitar. Let's again make this blue. And I want to move this guitar actually up here with our guitars. Now this is going to be different because this is not an effect send. We want to actually send our guitars, both of them, over here to this bus so we can do affect both of them fully. So what we're going to do is click output. We're going to change it from main to guitar. Same thing with this one to guitar. And if we solo this one up now, You can see they're coming in right here. So those are coming in now. And what we want to do is just add a little bit of EQ and compression to these. So click this, and we're going to come down here and add this in right here. And this is going to affect both of our guitars at the same time instead of individually. So this is how you can use a bus to do this. Just like this. And so there we go. Just getting rid of some rumble and stuff down here, kind of taming the high end a little bit right there. There we go. And let's say we want to add a little bit of compression. So a very popular option is the LA3A compressor. Let's use guitar and bass. Oops, nope, presets. Guitar right here. And let's just do electric guitar 2. There we go, just a little bit of compression, just kind of glue those together. And now if we play everything together. The other nice thing about something like this guitar bus is I can set the relationship between the volumes between these two guitars. And when I move this, it's moving all the guitars up and down volume wise and leaving the relationship alone. So that's another great way of using buses like this. All right, so now that our mix is sounding pretty good, we want to have it ready to send out to our world, to our friends and family, and share our music, right? One thing I like to do before I do that is do just a little bit of mastering. This is going to bring our levels up and make it sound kind of like radio ready, right? It's that last little bit. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to use a plugin called Master Desk Classic from Plugin Alliance. You can actually get this free when you sign up with an account with them. And so we're going to use this. It's quick and easy and does a pretty good job for those of us who don't want to dive too deep into mastering. All right, so there we go. All right, so now that we have our song mastered and it's all sounding professional and radio ready, we want to export it so we can upload it to Spotify or send it to our friends or however we want to share our music. So we want to export or mix down our tracks. So right here, I like to come back here to the transport view or the timeline view. And first of all, I want to get rid of this click because I definitely don't want the click in there. So I hit Command M to mute that MIDI right there. So the easiest way I have found is to actually just kind of come up here and drag this over like this and just past the end of your track. And then this one right here, just in front of the beginning right there. And that way we have a little bit of silence before and after, not too much. And that blue section right there represents the region that will be exported. All right, so now that we have our region selection, we're going to want to open up the mix down option. You can do that here from your mix workflow. There's a mix down button right there. But also you can come over here to File, Export, Mix Down right here. And this will open up your mix down settings. Want to make sure that main is selected because we want to export from our main outputs. You can do stems and stuff like that if you have all your buses set up correctly, but that is a whole nother video. And then real-time mix down. And then it's just saved to the default location is fine. We want to do an MP3 because we're going to send this off to our friends and family for them to listen to on their phones. VBR for variable bitrate is fine. And then of course we want the highest quality. And we're going to export this right now. All right, so now our song is exported. All right. And that'll pop up. You may not be able to see this, but my Finder window with all my files popped up to exactly the folder where that file is. So now I can copy, paste it, drag it, email it, send it through text message, whatever it is I want to do. All right, so there we go. Our song is recorded with multiple tracks, audio tracks, instrument tracks, mixed, mastered, mixed down, ready to send out to our friends and family. And we have done the whole thing on this Universal Audio Volt 2 interface. Now, this thing is an absolute workhorse and I use it all the time. In fact, I did a full review of the features and everything that comes with it in this video right here. So check this out to find out exactly why I think this is the best audio interface under $200 on the market today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you over here.